The only way to really describe this movie is to just call it what it is. Joel Wick. That's what it is. John Woo directed a very grounded version of John Wick. Instead of killing a dog, it's killing this man's child and then taking away his voice. But it's written very much like a John Wick movie, very much like any other kind of gritty revenge story from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all things considered. But it is produced by one of the key producers behind the John Wick franchise. So there's really no way to look at it any other way than calling it Joel Wick. That's why the joke is on the thumbnail. But that being said, I caught this movie the other night in a double feature with Godzilla Minus One, and I was a little bit, I don't want to say apprehensive when I went in to go see it, because I just walked out of Godzilla Minus One, which in my mind is an absolute classic. It's a masterpiece. It's 10 out of 10. And I'm thinking to myself, how can I go from that movie, a kaiju movie that nearly brought me to tears on an emotional level, and walk into this movie that has no dialogue, because it doesn't have any dialogue really. Like, there are some people who talk, but mostly it's like the radio station DJs or news reports or something along those lines in order to move the story along. But other than that, nobody speaks. It's a very ambitious project. It's a very ambitious idea, and one that does, yes, in my opinion, ultimately stick the landing. I really did think that the movie was a lot of fun. But coming off of Godzilla Minus One, which is a movie about despair and overcoming despair, it does feel a bit cathartic to walk into this one, because here you've got a story about a man who, again, his voice is taken away after he's shot in the neck by the head of a cartel that is operating in a southwestern, like, Texas city that doesn't necessarily exist, but it's on the border. I think it's meant to like represent like El Paso, but it's not El Paso. And then the other side of the border is meant to represent Juarez, but they don't ever call it Juarez. But either way, these guys run the streets, man. It's nonstop gang shootouts, tons of innocent bystanders that are always put in danger. The cops are basically inefficient and weak and feckless to be able to stop them. And that is where we basically start the film. Is Joel Kinnaman's character, Brian, shot, wounded, goes through physical training, goes home angry, bitter at the world, starts drinking, starts pushing his wife away. She does what she can. She tries to live with him the best that she can, but it just ultimately doesn't work. And it isn't until he goes to the police station in order to find the detective to determine, to basically go, what the hell's going on, where he sees all of the bad guys that he is going to kill, especially when he recognizes the man who shot him in the throat, the man who runs the cartel. And so he goes home, he stops drinking. He writes down that on December 24th that year, kill them all is going to happen. And it's here that he just goes into this like massive montage, right? Where he's teaching him, like, he's learning how to shoot. He's learning how to fight. He's learning how to drive. He's buying Kevlar for a car. He's doing all of these things to basically train himself to be a one-man army against this overwhelming force at the expense, quite frankly, of his marriage, which at that point, like, when his wife leaves, it's kind of funny because it's like, even I was going like, he's not, like, they make you think that he's going to go like lay with her in bed. Like they're going to reconcile, you know, cause like the way they shoot it and everything, and you think they're going to go have sex. Honestly, I thought they're gonna, like, you know, cause they were like cuddling with each other, and it's like this moment of tenderness and this moment of embrace and this moment of love. And then she just picks up some suitcases and nopes the hell out. And then my immediate thought was his immediate thought, which was, oh, good, she's gone. No more interruptions. Cause he just goes back into training and he just ramps it up. What I like about the movie is that it's very tightly paced. John Woo shot this thing very well, very quickly. They shot it in Mexico City, and it feels gritty, it feels grimy, it feels dirty, which in many ways Mexico City is, to be fair. You know, and it may be seen as some as being like largely tone deaf because all of the bad guys are Hispanic. But then again, it's meant to be Mexican gangs from over the border. It's not the most subtle movie ever made in regards to what it's trying to say. It feels like Detroit from RoboCop, but just south of the border, if that makes any sense, or near the border, really. If you want an idea for what I feel the city is like, it feels like RoboCop. And it's kind of funny because Joel Kinnaman in 2014 played RoboCop in the reboot, which, by the way, is better than it has any right to be. And I'll definitely need to do a deep dive on that when it comes to audio commentary here pretty soon. But either way, when it comes to Silent Night, I really enjoyed the build up to the night, especially the night before when he decides to go after their money man, and he knocks the guy out with some very bad CG, but that was not the point. Takes the guy home and he's like intimidating him, and then the guy gets free. They get into this fight. He almost loses. He almost gets completely killed. He ends up taking a full like knife, like stab wound to the leg. And then like he ends up getting what he needs, but he almost fails. And then the next night he goes and delivers the bad guy to the cop, basically saying, I'm going to do what, you haven't done yet. And he goes off and he starts kind of just taking everybody out. But the first people that he kills, he ends up like vomiting as soon as he does it. Like once that adrenaline just dies, he just pukes. And I really enjoyed that because it's like, he's never done this before. He's determined at this point now, he's past the point of no return, but he's never done it before. So he just keeps making his way through these different encounters. And one of the ones I really liked was like the two guys he kills at first, he cuts off their fingers and then he hucks it over the fence at the bad guy's like compound in order to more or less clear it out, because they are meant to believe that it's like a gang sign, a gang war sort of thing. So then there's a shootout between two of the gangs. He shows on up and he starts just like doing this like 360 donut around this like gas pump, and they're shooting at him and he's just like popping him off a little bit. But there's this cop that is stuck and she is trying to get away. She takes a shot to the leg and he rolls up to the side and he kicks open the door and he's trying to pull her in. He's trying to save her. He's trying to help her. Then she just gets a shot to the back. She's dead. And he stops and he just kind of like pauses for a second. You're like, and then he just like pushes. He basically kicks her corpse out of the car and then peels the F off out of there, because there's nothing more that he could do. Then he makes it to the compound. They get in like a car chase fight scene, gets into the compound, takes out a bunch of bad guys with a shotgun. I mean, it's your standard tropes, man, but it's good. It's really good. It's fun as he's making his way through. Feels like a video game, feels like John Wick. Here comes the detective. The two don't actually have any dialogue, but they kind of agree to like fight alongside each other. The detective actually is Kid Cudi, which I did not know until doing research for this review. And then he ends up getting effed up by like the girlfriend of the bad guy, who like, by the way, the bad guy like dopes her up with like heroin or something. So she's like completely just out of it. You're meant to think she's the victim, but then you find out that she's in on it because she still like pretends to give up, but then shoots Kid Cudi. And you think he's dead, and then Kinnaman just kills her. And then the two of them get into a fight, him and the bad guy get into a fight, and like double guns, guns akimbo, all that stuff. John Woo stuff, minus the doves. No doves. There's a parrot in the movie, but no doves. So it does lack a couple of the elements of what you would expect from a John Woo movie. But, and then, he strangles the dude to death and then dies from his wounds. After the adrenaline has gone away. He looks up, sees a tree, sees a bunch of these ornaments, envisions his son, the life his son would have had, the life they would have had together, and then he dies. What sucks about that, though, is like nowhere in there was really his wife, which makes me really question like how much he cared about her, I guess, whatever. But then at the end, like his wife gets a note from him at the gravesite where their son is buried, and he basically owns up to everything. He's like, you tried to love me. You did the best you could do. That's on me. Nothing I will do will ever bring him back or make it right, but I'll die trying, and that's it. And that's where he leaves it. And you're like, okay, that's where the movie ends. That's where the film ends. And you're like, okay. It's a straightforward revenge story, very lean, very tight, lots of good violence. Looking forward to watching it again to get more out of it. I want to like see more about the background and stuff. I like the way that they shot it without any dialogue. And it just makes the movie interesting to watch, interesting to check out. But as always, I want to know your thoughts about this. Did you guys see it? Did you like it? Do you want to see more out of John Woo at his age of like 70, I think, doing more of these movies? Or do you think it's just another stupid attempt at a cash grab? I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Talk to you guys later. Have a good one.